South Carolina is a southeastern state, home to 5.3 million residents across 71 cities, 200 towns, and 8 metropolitan areas with populations over 100,000. I see South Carolina as a very overlooked state, and honestly I'm sure a lot of my viewers see this as a pretty random video to make, but I've always been interested in the state, and especially the major metropolitan areas. See, South Carolina has 3 big metropolitan areas, that being Greenville in the northeast, Columbia in the center, and Charleston on the coast, all 3 of which are relatively similar in population. I want you to now think which one of these metros is actually the largest population-wise, because I'm sure it's not a topic many people have studied extensively, and I think it's a fun little idea to cover. Before that though, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I try to make geography content every weekend, so if you enjoy this video and want to see more, subscribing really helps me out and I appreciate it a ton. Thank you. So South Carolina has a very unique Big 3. And no, I'm not talking about a Big 3 from Raven Johnson to seal the game over Indiana, but instead about the 3 biggest cities and their combined statistical areas. These 3 cities all have their own reasons as to why they could take this title, or even why they could be considered the most major city in the state. Charleston has always been seen in my eyes as the state's most major, being an important historical hub and area. Columbia is the state's capital with the state university, and Greenville is on the up, growing very quickly. All 3 of these are quite similar, with their own unique qualities. But actually, before I get into those 3 cities, let's start by looking at the 4th place spot, Myrtle Beach. Now, Myrtle Beach isn't big enough to be considered within the Big 3, but it's still a pretty large combined statistical area with Conway, holding a population of 551 as of 2020. This really isn't that far off of the larger cities on this list, as it stretches along the coastline a lot more than people think, and it's quite overlooked when talking about populations. In fact, there's no interstate within the metro, making it one of the largest areas without one. It's not making a run for the title though. A city that is within our top 3 though is Charleston, so let's look at that first. So Charleston is the most populous city in the state of South Carolina. Remember, we're talking about metro area and not city proper for this video. And it's one of the most important historical cities in the country for the 16, 17, and 1800s. It has a very unique and diverse downtown that reflects the history, and it's actually a beautiful city. Charleston has always been one of my favorite cities in the country, and though I probably wouldn't choose to live there, I had a great time visiting. The main county, Charleston County, has a population of 411,000. And finally, the entire metro holds a population of 849,000, which actually ends up being a lot smaller than some people think, which holds weight for this video. It's smaller than metros like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, McAllen, Texas, or Omaha, Nebraska. With that though, it is growing at a significant rate at 6.23% since 2020. Now we move farther up the I-26 corridor, which passes through all 3 cities, as we find Columbia, the state's capital. Now Columbia is another very overlooked city, especially since it isn't growing at the same rate as the other 2, and it has no major suburbs that most people know. If I made a poll asking today's question, I'd make a guess that Columbia would probably get the least votes. But again, you have to understand all 3 of these are very similar sizes. Columbia City proper has a population of 136,000, making it the 2nd most populous in the state. It's mostly within Richland County, which has a population of 416,000. Now, it's not growing as steadily as Charleston, with a rate of 3.48% since 2020, but the total population is 858,000 in the metropolitan area, which puts it above Charleston by just under 10,000. As well as that, with Charleston growing almost double the rate, it could absolutely pass Columbia within the next 10 years. And honestly, it's expected. The crime rate is higher in Columbia than both Charleston and Greenville, so it's not necessarily the nicest place in the state, but it is the capital, so it has a lot of government jobs, university jobs, and other good opportunities. It's not a bad city. Now finally, we can move to the northeast part of the state where we find the Greenville-Anderson metropolitan area. Now the city of Greenville actually has just 70,000 residents, making it the 6th most populous in the state. But it's the entire metro where things start to boom. There's Malden, Greer, Simpsonville, Anderson, and many other smaller towns that band together to form one larger clump of cities. Greenville is the center of influence here, but there's no denying it is pulled in many different directions, and it isn't very centralized. Now, when we talk about overlooked, Greenville is a different level than Columbia or any other area in the state. It has so many more people than most would expect, And with that, I can reveal it actually has the highest metro population in the state, at 975,000. A pretty big increase over the last two cities. So not only is it the biggest of the three, but it is by a good bit. And just to add on to it, Spartanburg is a neighboring metropolitan area of 355,000, and a lot of people consider this metro to be Greenville-Spartanburg, which would push the total up to 1.49 million, blowing away both Columbia and Charleston. I think it's fascinating that this overlooked, oftentimes forgotten metropolitan area is actually the largest in the state. And if you don't know geography like the back of your hand, I highly doubt it would be your first guess. Now, there are a couple more things to talk about. Firstly, why is Greenville so overlooked? And why do most people not know it's so large? Well, as I previously stated, Greenville is not a very centralized metro. It feels smaller than it is because of how spread out the many cities are. Greenville, South Carolina is not a household name as far as big cities go, and it only has 70,000 people, so even though it's a large metro, people just don't really think about it compared to Columbia, the capital, or Charleston, the city with most likely the most influence. Personally, I completely understand why most people don't know this fact. Finally, I think the difference in geography between the three cities is really interesting. Charleston is in the swampy coastline region, giving it a more tropical feel. Columbia is in the Midlands region, a flatter but less swampy part of the state right along the country's fall line. And finally, Greenville-Spartanburg is in the uplands region of the state, right along the Appalachian Mountains in the Piedmont. It's higher, hillier, and colder than the more coastal regions, but it's still in a very pretty and nice geographical area. That's what I think is especially interesting, because none of these spots are bad, and they all have their benefits, but they are very different for all being in the same state. That's where we end today, though. Hopefully you learned something new about this state and some of the more overlooked cities in the country. Thanks for watching. Thank you to the members this week. Forda Jake, Sir JC17, Alex Williams, Makita Martinoff, Kurt Ainsley, Jerome McCall, Haystack, KMS162, JL, Bryson, Dominic Psyche, Rosebud 4, Christopher DeAngelis, Darkbird, Pig Pasty, Jeremy Crone, Wolfling73, Snyder Schwein, Benjamin Whitings, Ryan Devins, and Hazev the Wolf. You all help out the channel so much. I appreciate you all that have been here for a while and have been continuously giving money to me. Going into college here, this is absolutely making a difference to me, and I really appreciate it because it's helping me make everything easier, debt-wise and everything, so I really appreciate it. If you want to become a member, the link is down in the description below. As I just said, it's just another way to help me. I'm going into college in a couple weeks here, so if you want to help me over the next 4 years of my life, this is the best way to do it. As well as that, join the Discord. I have an active Discord with a lot of people. We talk geography there. So if you're interested in that type of thing, you appreciate the content, and you want to talk to me specifically, that's the best way to do it. We have a really good community over there, and I would love if we would do a little bit more growing. So thank you.